So Halloween, easily my favorite holiday, especially as someone who likes to build costumes and stuff. It's pretty much the same as building something for a convention, but you can relax a little bit. You don't have to worry so much about quality. Still a deadline, but definitely not as stressful. No competitions involved. I mean, there might be a Halloween costume contest somewhere, but you're not going for a trophy. You might get like a mug or some candy or a free pass to somewhere, or for me, I build my costumes for the roller skating rinks that I go to. They're probably the only Halloween events I normally hit up in October. Every year I'll make something. I try and push it back like a month or two ahead, try and give myself some time to make something. I usually try and keep the budget for it insanely low. I'll usually just use a lot of scrap foam that I have laying around the house, try and figure out how much I have on inventory that I can use. Yes, I can't remember how many years ago this did start, but let's see, I've made the first one I made, I made Lucio from Overwatch. I was an inline skater then, and I was playing Overwatch a lot then too. He was the only character that kind of worked, and the leg pieces turned out really good, but I kind of ran out of time for the top half, so I didn't make the wig. The shirt was very rushed, but the legs were really cool. I really liked it, but downside was that nobody knew who I was. I mean, small towns, I don't know, not one person knew who I was. So the next year, I decided I was going to try and do something a little more mainstream that people would recognize. And I made a War Machine from the Avengers or Iron Man. Or I used the template for that. That was probably one of the first big template projects that I actually made. Can't remember where I bought that from. It might have been HeroesWorkshop, but I'm not 100% sure. People like that. The kids loved it. Like all the regulars and stuff. It was easily recognized. That same year, I also made my nephew Rocket Raccoon. I think he was the one that wanted to be Rocket first, and I decided to make War Machine along with it. I don't think I have a video of that up. I do have it on my Facebook. Maybe I'll make a video about those later. They were a fun build. After that, COVID hit and the lockdown happened, so there weren't any conventions, so I wasn't able to build a whole lot. So I just kind of made like a cyberpunk robot kind of dude. And then the year after that, which would have been last year, we were in the process of moving, so everything was packed up, so I definitely wasn't buying any new foam. So I took what little scraps I had and I just made a Frankenstein mask, grabbed together some old stuff and made kind of like a Frankenstein character. So this year right now, 22, is probably like the first year I'm actually settled in the craft room, and it's also the first time I'm going to be able to actually build something down here. So convention season will start next year. So this is kind of almost like a warm-up. Still only using craft foam that I have in the house. So I had a lot left over after the move. It was just so much I had still stored up, because I think I had bought a bunch of foam in preparation before the shutdown in 2020, and then never got to use any of it. So it's all been sitting around. For as much foam as I actually used on this, in terms of how much I actually spent in foam, probably $10 at Hobby Lobby. Everything else I had on inventory. So far, the biggest price has just been contact cement, just to put everything together. I already had a stash of brand new razor blades stashed away in the storeroom, so just contact cement, probably about 8 cans of these. I had a couple on hand already. I didn't go out and buy 8 cans. I might have bought in maybe 5 or 6, which is still expensive. Contact cement probably runs about like $7-8 a can. My local Walmart used to have giant jugs. They don't seem to have that anymore. But anyway, I'm rambling. So these templates for this RoboCop suit I purchased from HeroesWorkshop. It's not the first time I've used HeroesWorkshop's templates. I've used them once or probably at least twice before. Nothing on anything serious, just something I felt like starting but never finished. And his templates are good. I like them. Disclaimer though, I'm gonna be talking about the templates. This is by no means like a review. No template's perfect, obviously. For example, everybody's built different. You're gonna have to make adjustments. Things might not fit you properly in some spaces where it might fit someone else better. You're gonna be a different height than whatever the base model is. I look at them more like time savers rather than like a go-to easy how to cosplay kind of thing. Like you're gonna have to make aside from like your adjustments and stuff, not everything is going to be included in your templates. So for example, so we have this shin piece here, okay? The vast majority of this is not in the template, because if you look, the basic shape of this thing is very symmetrical. It's from down the center, it's the same side to side. So the template only covered one half, and obviously you have two of these, so you're going to have to do one half the template, invert it for the other side, and then do that once more to build the whole thing over again. Your templates are all based on, well, not all templates, but these templates are all based in Pepakura. This isn't like a Pepakura tutorial video, but to kind of give an idea, Pepakura is like a paper folding program. I don't know how popular the actual art craft is nowadays, but that's what the program started out as. People use it a lot as a cosplay template program nowadays. It's like each individual piece is in its own file. So for example, this foot, that's one file. So you can, when you're going to translate that file to paper, you can adjust it to your foot size. Same with like, arms, chest, and whatnot. So when you go to like actually import that into Pepakura, you have the option to scale things to your size. You can't stretch and elongate things, not that I know of, but you can scale it up and down. Afterwards, you print it out on cardstock, double check your printing settings. I prefer to build my templates in the cardstock before I actually start using them on foam. Reason being is you can try it on, you can see what kind of shortcuts you can make depending on your time, because like since it is a paper-based program, obviously foam is thicker than paper, so there might be spots where you don't need to do an actual small corner. You can just layer a piece on top, for example, I don't know if I can get any good lighting here, but this front piece here on the shin, like in the template, it actually wanted to do an individual piece of foam for like this tiny little corner piece here on the inside, which foam's so thick you don't need to. You can just run a straight piece down, run that on top, small stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, after you print it out and everything, you still have access to the file in Pepakura, so you can still spin the model around to see like where each piece goes and how everything fits together. But I personally feel that if you build it in paper first, then that gives you an idea of what you can cut out, what you can add later. Like I said, what kind of shortcuts you can make. Kind of hard to explain unless you actually kind of get your hands into it. But yeah, like I said, you can't go into buying a template and thinking it's going to hold your hand the whole way through. You're still going to have to apply like your problem solving skills, your creativity. It definitely is a time saver. It's not a one-to-one how-to. Like the Like the template's not going to tell you, you know, you need to make a 45-degree angle cut here or a 90-degree angle cut there. You need to know how to do that kind of stuff yourself. So for example, let me show these for representation. So you have like your flat corners here. You know, you can butt them up to create a flat line. You could have a flat corner and an angled corner. You know, they'll give you about a 45-degree angle bend. Or you can use 2 angle cuts, and that gives you about a 90-degree angle. You know, pro tip, flat corners, that's not a very strong bond. 2 angle cuts, like that, that'll hold good. Another little pro tip when doing your tracing is a piece of scrap foam I have. Because foam is thicker than paper, especially if you're going to make your templates first and then try them on, when you go to make everything in foam, it's going to be kind of shrunk down because your material is thicker, so it's going to not bend as tight. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's going to be tighter. So what I normally do is, so I'll trace the actual template, but when I go to cut, I'll cut on the outside of the outline rather than the inside, so it's a little bit larger than the template that I had traced, and that little bit extra kind of helps make up for that shrinkage that you get from the thicker material. A couple more pro tips would be like any like actual large pieces that you have to like template wise, when you still have everything built out in your template, you can actually create extra hash marks to connect piece to piece. That way you kind of have an idea of where things are going to line up when you start putting everything together. Obviously label your pieces left and rights, you know, 1 2 3 4s, that way you can remember where everything fits together. Even though you do have the program next to you, it can still be a good visual representation where you don't have to constantly go back and check it. You can just be like, okay, I have all my templates laying here on the floor or on the table. You know, I got 1 2 3 4 5 6 lined up. I have an idea where they need to be. Trace them all out, label them the same, and then just looking at them, you can be like, oh, okay, that's 1 2 3 4 5 6. I know how they all fit together. I don't have to constantly go back to the computer. Especially, not everyone's craft table is right next to the computer. Most of us are either doing it on a coffee table or, you know, in our basement. We don't all have the luxury of having a spare computer in our craft room. I do, but it's kind of like a hodgepodge Frankenstein leftover PC, old parts. Probably not the best thing to be recording all this on, but is what it is. For the most part, this build went pretty good. Obviously I had to make some adjustments, like the chest was a little too big. I scaled it up a little too much. I thought I was bigger than I was, apparently. Like in Pepakora, it'll like box everything off and tell you like how high it is and how wide it is. You can switch between metric and standard. So I did my measurements with a tape measure, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm this much by this much. I need to upscale it by 10-20%, and it ended up being too big. Not a ton, but I did end up having to cut everything down, shrink it some. The shin pieces were probably the worst. They were way too tight on me. There probably was an easier way to deal with it, but I ended up redesigning the entire back half. So this entire section here and all this, that was all me kind of redesigning everything. Actually, let's change camera angles. Okay. So, for example, like all of this and this part here, that was all part of the original template. I ended up adding this piece here just to widen this here out, because what I was having a problem with was when I put my foot in, my heel would get hung up here in the back, and I couldn't get my foot in the rest of the way. Now, I also tried to add some extra stuff here just to try and widen it out a little bit too, because it was also still too tight around my foot. I widened out this entire back piece as well, just to get it myself as much extra room to get my foot down. Now I could have, you know, just made like a flap or something like that and then tighten it back down, but the problem I was running into was, well, not so much a problem I was running into, the problem I was going to have. I'm going to be wearing this while I roller skate, and that means I have to put it on before I put my roller skates on. So there were like a lot of issues in terms of getting things on and then tying my shoes afterwards. I was going to need like a lot of ankle room. Plus, on top of that, I needed a little bit of extra wiggle room because when I'm skating, I'm going to need to be able to like actually bend my ankles and stuff. So I ended up cutting the base of this up just a little bit higher than what was in the template as well, just to give myself just a tiny little bit of wiggle room. A couple other things, like for example, the template didn't include this back piece here. I'm not going to attach this to the hinge here on the actual back of the foot, just because I'm not going to say I'm an advanced skater, but I can do a lot of stuff. Shuffle skate, probably like my go-to thing, but you know, I can also skate backwards, sideways, and if I attach these two things together, this and this, that's gonna greatly limit what I can do. Like if I go to skate on my toes, I could see this bending. I mean, it could work. It would definitely hold the heel up. It's an option. I will probably test it out after I paint it, and I'll end up putting these. I'll throw my skates on, try it out, and see if I can do something like that. If it doesn't give me any problems, I'll cut it to size, and then I'll you know, attach the two pieces. But as of right now, I'm just going to let this piece hang. Another thing that wasn't included in the template was let's see, like this little piece here on the knee, you know, and then this here on the side. Now, like I mentioned in the template, it's more there just as a time saver, so it gives you your base construction for everything here. This is something that you can do on your own. It's not a complicated shape. I could have made it look nicer, but it's not important. You don't need a template to make this. You can just do that by hand. Plus, when I was working on scaling and stuff, what I did was I put the thigh piece on first, then I put on this, and then I was able to actually measure out that exact spot. So this actually, the way I shaped this all out was to fit that little contour between the thigh and the shin. I do apologize for how low my camera is. I can't take it up any higher with my current setup. So another thing, like I had mentioned, so the thigh pieces was also just a one-piece template. So obviously the template didn't include these lines here. You know, this is all a part of the actual design of the RoboCop leg, but it's not needed because, I mean, this is more of an artistic thing. This is something that you can add yourself. Same with like these little cutouts here. I think there's probably supposed to be one back here as well, but I'm saving myself a little bit of time by not doing them. They're not that important. Also, it's just a Halloween costume. But again, the template only had like a left leg or a right leg or something. So everything here is exactly the same on the other side. But if you ever looked at RoboCop's legs, his other side has a slightly different design in the front on the left leg. So what I had done was I just took everything here, got rid of it, and then I made this part here by hand. This is the kind of thing where I say like you still have to apply your own creativity and your own craftsmanship to it. It's more there just to bypass the template making process, because that can sometimes be the longest process when you're making a costume. This is why I don't use templates when I'm like going into a competition or something like that, for like a convention. I tend to use templates either for something for fun or just like to play around with, I guess. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to work on these camera angles a little bit. So, body piece. I don't have any good lighting here. So it doesn't really mention in the template this entire part here is built separate. I split it down the side here, and I just hooked up some elastic underneath it. That way it has a little bit of give, that way it's not so snug and I can slip it on and off real easy. Let's see, like for example, this little hole here, that's not in the template. That's something you can add. You can cut out a hole yourself. You don't, you know, is it perfect? No. Does it have to be? No. It's very good for what it is, template wise. I like it. I'm going to keep using it. Anytime you're using a template, by all means, pay for them. You know, there are free templates out there. Usually, if they're not a knockoff, they are just cheap. Like I did see one online of this, but it wasn't broken into the actual template pieces. I don't know if the template that I had seen online was the same and someone just kind of stole it, or how it worked out, but if it wasn't the same, it was a similar model. But it had everything in tiny little triangles, tiny pieces. Nothing was broken out or set up and laid out for you. As far as the hands go, there was a template for them, but I opted to do it myself and just trace out my hand and do it that way. I think only this part here I had used the template for. I had to trim it down a lot too because it was pretty big. I just find it a lot easier to do this kind of stuff do all this kind of on my own by myself. Whoops. This is by means not pretty, but it doesn't have to be. I know it's at least loose enough that I can take it off. There's enough room for it to breathe. I mean, no one's really gonna look at it too much, especially when you're skating. I mean, I'm gonna be moving, so it's more about just getting that silhouette. The visor. So I'm not gonna waste a ton of time here, but I'm gonna try. Like, I don't think the actual lettering on the side was on a template. Obviously this is not pretty, but once I seal all this up, paint it, you know, that's just gonna end up being a texture that you can read, maybe, if you're close enough. I'm not going for quality here, I'm just going here to have some fun. This was probably like a $7 LED from Walmart Halloween section. Favorite time to buy LEDs, a lot of their party lights and stuff. Oh, you should grab a bunch of stuff, random stuff. I made a channel for this inside the helmet. After I paint it, I'll attach it, but I turn it on, then the visor will light up. I don't know, I can try it on, maybe cut this down. Okay, that's a bust. Yeah. Not until I put it together is that thing gonna fit well again. And that's another thing, I'll try everything on over and over and over mean, obviously, do the whole measure twice, cut once thing, but foam's pretty forgiving in that aspect. You can always trim, you can add extra to make things bigger again. Depending on how good your prep work is before paint, it won't be noticeable. Plus, Halloween's the time you can really get away with kind of failing a lot too. So if you ever want to get into cosplay, Halloween's the time to do it, because if you mess up, someone's just like, oh, it's just a Halloween costume, no big deal. Am I making the gun? I'm thinking about it. Originally I thought not to, because I figure I'm not taking it to a convention, I'm taking it to a roller skating rink, you know, so a fake gun's not a good idea to do something like that. I might still make it to take to conventions later. I wasn't gonna take it to the skating rink, but I was showing one of the owners of one of the rinks I go to, and he's like, "Are you making the gun?" And I'm like, "Well, when there's gonna be like families around, I don't want to freak anybody out." And he's like, "No, you got to make the gun though. It's like it's a part of it. It's iconic. It's like he's not RoboCop without the giant freaking gun." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I mean, like, isn't it gonna freak somebody out?" He goes, "Oh, if it's so exaggerated, they're not gonna recognize it." And I'm like, "I could make it and then bring it out for pictures, but not skate with it or anything like that." So I might do it. I just don't really want to cause a scene with it, because that would be bad. It'll definitely be one of those things where if I have time, I'll make it. If not, doesn't matter. Probably be hitting up, I think, 2 to 3 rinks with this costume. I have a Halloween session on the 28th, I think. Yeah, I have a Halloween session on the 28th and another Halloween session on the 29th. There's a possibility that there's an adult skate session with a Halloween twist on the 21st, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I was given an estimated date, but not an exact date. Not everyone has their flyers out yet, so 2 for sure now, 3 maybe. This will probably be a 2-part video, because right now everything is just, as you saw, in its construction. Right now everything's in its current state, ready to start getting prepped for paint, and hopefully I'll start painting tomorrow. If not tomorrow, maybe the day after. Do a bunch of layers of quick seal, and then I'll hit everything up with Plasti Dip. That is going to be the most expensive part of the build. I didn't look at my receipt, I just went out and bought a couple cans. Hopefully I bought enough. I think I bought 4 cans of Plasti Dip and then 2 cans of silver. What I'm going to do is, since RoboCop's just two-tone, everything black is just going to be Plasti Dip. Black Plasti Dip. I mean, I already used black foam, so for example, this part of the gauntlet, that'll be black Plasti Dip, and it'll just stay black Plasti Dip. Sure, you're going to see my hand and my wrist in it, and when the lights are out and all the LEDs are on and stuff on the rink floor, you're not going to see much of my skin. And if you do, who cares? It's Halloween. I mean, I'm not getting judged for it. I'm not going up against other people. I'm just there to have fun and be goofy. Which does actually kind of like bring up an interesting topic. I'm rambling, I know. But why costumes for Halloween? Especially cosplay costumes. So both making costumes and going to a convention, that requires a lot of confidence to be able to actually put that stuff on and walk around. Roller skating as well is also a big confidence booster, because the more you start learning, you know, it's kind of like the more self-conscious you become, because you're like, oh, well, I'm doing these tricks, I'm doing these dance moves, you know, I'm doing these shuffle routines, people are going to be watching me, and it's like, no, but so you take both and slam that together. That requires a ton of confidence to do, and I like doing it because it forces me into an uncomfortable situation. like getting out of the car in front of the rink and getting the stuff and putting it on, it is like chest poundingly like, oh my god, I feel like a freaking idiot. And then you get in immediately before you even put your skates on, everyone's like, oh my god, that's so cool. And then you put your skates on and everyone's like, oh my god, that's so cool. And confidence just, you know, it feels good. It's that leap is just so satisfying. Plus it makes it fun for everyone else too, because then, you know, everyone gets to see RoboCop. A lot of people at the rinks have been kind of slowly following the build too, so hi to those folks if you actually see this video. Yeah, so as of right now of recording, it's the 17th of October, so it's early in the morning. And like I mentioned earlier, the skate sessions aren't until like the 28th, 21st at the earliest, but the 20th and the 29th are when the two other sessions are. So if I can edit this down before then, this will be one part of 2 parts. And then when I go to make the final part, which probably will end up being in November, it'll be of the paint, the wearing, and hopefully I'll have at least some footage from the rinks of me skating in it. I'm sure someone's gonna take a video, hopefully. But yeah, until then, I guess I'll cut this off here. Any questions or anything like that, I mean, by all means, put them in the comments and I'll answer what I can, or add them in a follow-up video or something. Yeah, thanks for watching.